The air in Buenos Aires was thick with despair, a palpable sense of hopelessness that seemed to cling to every corner of the city. Alfredo, once a respected engineer with a promising future, now wandered the streets aimlessly, his heart heavy with the weight of unemployment and lost dreams. One stifling afternoon, as the oppressive heat bore down on the city, his solitude was abruptly shattered. A group of men appeared out of nowhere, their faces hardened by years of hardship, their eyes cold and unfeeling. Their leader, Samir, a man known for his ruthless demeanor, approached Alfredo with a menacing stride. Samir's voice was a low growl, laced with threat and malice, as he demanded information Alfredo did not possess. He demanded information Alfredo did not possess, his tone leaving no room for negotiation or escape. Fear coiled in Alfredo's gut like a snake, tightening with every passing second. He had stumbled into a dangerous game, one that he had no intention of playing but could not avoid. Samir's men pressed closer, their shadows engulfing him, creating a suffocating sense of dread. They shoved him against a wall, the rough brick biting into his skin, a painful reminder of his vulnerability. Alfredo felt a surge of terror, a primal instinct to survive kicking in as he realized the gravity of his situation. He knew of Samir and his gang's brutality, their reputation for leaving no witnesses and showing no mercy. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows over the city, Alfredo found himself at a crossroads, both literally and figuratively. He knew he had to disappear into the labyrinthine streets of Buenos Aires, to lose himself in the maze of alleys, and hope for a chance to escape the nightmare that had become his reality. Days later, a frantic knock echoed through the quiet night, jolting Alfredo from his restless sleep. He had been tossing and turning, haunted by the shadows of his past, when the urgent sound pulled him back to reality. He stumbled to the door, heart pounding, and opened it to find Sophia, his neighbor, standing there. Her eyes were red-rimmed, filled with a desperate plea that cut through the night like a knife. Without a word, she thrust a small photograph into his hand, her fingers trembling. Alfredo looked down to see a picture of a young girl, her eyes bright with innocence and a smile that could light up the darkest room. "This is my daughter, Cristina." Sophia choked back a sob, her voice breaking. "Samir has taken her." Through her tears, Sophia explained that her husband had stolen something valuable from Samir, a man known for his ruthless ways. Now, in a cruel twist of fate, Samir was holding Cristina hostage, using her as leverage to get back what was taken from him. Sophia, her voice trembling with fear and desperation, begged Alfredo for help. She had no one else to turn to, no one else she could trust. "You're the only one I can trust," she pleaded, her eyes searching his for any sign of hope. "Please, bring my daughter home." Alfredo stared at the photograph, feeling a surge of protectiveness wash over him. The image of Cristina's innocent face was now etched into his mind. He looked into Sophia's tear-filled eyes, seeing the raw pain and fear that mirrored his own past losses, and made a solemn promise. "I will bring Cristina back," he vowed, his voice firm despite the fear that gnawed at his insides. He knew the dangers that lay ahead, but his resolve was unshakable. There was a fierce determination that pushed aside the fear, a burning need to protect the innocent and right the wrongs. Alfredo would become Cristina's protector, her shield against the darkness that threatened to consume her. He would stop at nothing to bring her back safely, no matter the cost. The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. It was a desperate gamble, a high-stakes game where the cost of failure was unthinkable. Alfredo, with Sophia's help, would spirit Cristina out of Argentina. They spent countless nights poring over maps, plotting every step with meticulous care. They would travel under the cover of night, movements shrouded in secrecy. Every shadow was a potential threat, every sound a possible danger. Sophia revealed her husband's hiding place for Cristina, a small, forgotten church. It was a sanctuary, a place where hope and fear intertwined. Alfredo knew he couldn't do this alone. The weight of the mission was too great, the risks too high. He turned to Mateo, a former detective with a keen sense of justice. Mateo had seen the worst of humanity, but he still believed in doing what was right. Mateo listened to Alfredo's plan, eyes narrowed in thought. He knew the dangers, but he also knew the importance of the mission. Under the cloak of darkness, they moved swiftly. Every step was calculated, every movement precise. Alfredo slipped into the church, heart pounding. The silence was deafening, the air thick with tension. He found Cristina huddled in a pew, eyes wide with fear. She was a picture of vulnerability, a stark reminder of what was at stake. "Your mother sent me," Alfredo whispered, gently taking her hand. His voice was a lifeline, a promise of safety in a world gone mad. They moved like shadows, melting into the streets of Buenos Aires. The city was a labyrinth, each turn a step closer to freedom or disaster. Mateo had procured fake passports and travel documents. These were their tickets to a new life, forged papers that held the weight of their dreams. They boarded a cargo ship bound for Shanghai, their escape route perilous. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but it was their only hope for a future free from fear. The journey was fraught with tension. Alfredo, constantly looking over his shoulder, felt the invisible eyes of Samir's men. They were being hunted, pursued by a relentless enemy. Each day on the ship was an agonizing test of nerves. Cristina, despite her fear, displayed resilience that inspired Alfredo. In every port, Alfredo saw Samir's face in the shadows. They changed appearances, identities shifting like sand dunes. Mateo's contacts provided safe houses and passage. They traveled from port to port, always one step ahead. The constant fear took its toll. Alfredo saw his reflection, a different man now, forged in danger. He was no longer the defeated man from Buenos Aires. He was Cristina's protector, determined to see her safely home. Shanghai rose before them, a glittering metropolis. They navigated through crowded streets, senses on high alert. The air crackled with anticipation of the final confrontation. Mateo led them to a tea house, a place of quiet serenity. A woman, face partially obscured by a hat, sat alone. She acknowledged their presence with a subtle nod. The woman, Lynn, was a broker of information. "Samir is here," she confirmed, voice barely a whisper. A chill ran down Alfredo's spine. Lynn laid out the terms of the exchange. Samir wanted the documents Cristina's father had stolen. In return, he would release Cristina. The exchange was to take place at midnight, on the Bund. Alfredo saw a flicker of sympathy in Lynn's eyes, a hint of hope. The Bund, at midnight, was a kaleidoscope of lights and shadows. Alfredo, heart pounding, clutched the briefcase containing the documents. Beside him, Cristina stood silently, gripping his hand. Samir emerged from the shadows, flanked by two men. His eyes, cold and calculating, swept over them. "You have something that belongs to me," he growled. The tension was palpable. Alfredo, with calmness, placed the briefcase on the ground. "Let her go," he demanded, voice steady. Samir chuckled, a humorless sound. One of Samir's men shoved Cristina forward. She stumbled, but didn't cry out, walking towards Alfredo. He pulled her close, igniting a fierce determination within him. With Cristina safe, Alfredo felt a surge of relief. He had fulfilled his promise to Sofia. The ordeal had changed him. He was no longer the man who had walked the streets of Buenos Aires. He had found a purpose, a reason to believe. They returned to Buenos Aires, to Sofia's tearful embrace. The city now felt different, imbued with hope. He had faced his fears and emerged stronger. Word of his actions spread, tales of his bravery. Alfredo offered his assistance to others in need. He became a beacon of hope, a symbol of indomitable spirit. He had found redemption in protecting others. Years later, Alfredo sat on a park bench, watching children play. Cristina, no longer the frightened child, sat beside him, her laughter music to his ears. She was a reminder of the promise he had made. He looked at her, eyes sparkling with life, feeling peace. He had kept his promise to Sofia, protected Cristina. The scars of his past remained, badges of honor. As the sun set, Alfredo knew his journey was far from over. There would be other challenges, other battles. He had found his purpose in protecting others. And in the end, that was all that truly mattered.